Hey, it's your financial maven, Samantha Mittman-Besnoff, CPA, and after almost 25 years in the accounting world, I've decided to share my insights and passion about money. Knowing your money and hopefully feeling less stress about your money is what I call being financially empowered. Welcome to the Your Financial Maven podcast. Welcome to another exciting episode of Your Financial Maven. Today, I am so excited to bring to you Dr. Jeff Standridge. Jeff helps organizations and leaders generate sustained results in the areas of innovation, strategy, profit growth, and organizational transformation and leadership. Interestingly enough, you are an instrument-rated pilot in both single and multi-engine aircraft. I do think that's cool, although I don't like to fly. I will do it, but I do think that's cool. You formerly were vice president of Axiom Corporation, and you have led, established, and startup businesses units in North and South America, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. So you have been all over. You are managing director for AR Conductor, as well as Innovation Junkie. And I can leave some information in the podcast notes, those links as well. And you're also co-founder and managing partner of Cadron Capital Partners. And you teach business at the University of Central Arkansas, which is awesome. And you are also a retired U.S. Army, Arkansas National Army National Guard, where in 2000 you were recognized as Soldier of the Year by the 87th Troop Command. So thank you for your service, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. I'm excited for this conversation. But before we get into questions and kind of how you got to where you are and the things that you talk about, what is money?
What is money? Money is something you exchange for other things of value. It has multiple definitions depending on who you are. For some people, it's a status symbol. For some people, it's a lifestyle sustainer. For some people, it is a life sustainer, depending on how much or how little of it they have. And for some people, it is something to abuse.
You know, in my conversations over the last year and a half with the podcast, we don't really talk about that side of it, that you can have money and abuse it and be in a far worse situation or use it against others.
Well, you can. And unfortunately, the statistics bear out, certainly in North America, that, 2/3 to over 3/4 of American public struggle with money. They either spend more than they earn each month and finance the rest with credit cards, or they live paycheck to paycheck and are 2 weeks away from broke.
And then there's also that control issue too, right? You can be in a relationship where money can be the control, and how do you get yourself on a footing to maybe be able to get out from underneath that?
Absolutely.
So not only, all these things I mentioned you did, you are also a best-selling author of 3 books. And I'm going to list all 3 books because I actually want to go and get myself the books to read because these are great. So your first book is The Innovators Field Guide, Accelerators for Entrepreneurs, Innovators, and Change Agents. Your next book is The Top Performers Field Guide, which is a catalyst for leaders, innovators, and all who inspire to be. And your third book is called Creating Startup Junkies, Building Sustainable Venture Ecosystems in Unexpected Places. And I think these are fabulous. And I want to delve in a little bit. Writing these books, like what inspired you? What did you see as you were doing all these workshops or going and working in different places to come up with these different ways of helping others?
So it really goes back to probably when I was early in my career. I was actually in healthcare. I spent 9 years on a helicopter team for Arkansas Children's Hospital as a medical crew member. I was a paramedic and a respiratory therapist, and I was teaching at the University of Arkansas for medical sciences. And I began to see that there were dichotomies in our student population. So we had some folks who would make straight A's, but I wouldn't want to look up from an emergency room bed and see them standing over me, nor could they hold a job. Then there were folks who struggled to academically make a C, yet 35 years later, they're still in the field, they're still working, they're still doing great work. And so I started looking at what were the differences between those folks who were wildly successful, top 1% of performers, and those folks who were marginally or even averagely successful. And because I knew that it had nothing to do with academic attainment, credentials, letters behind one's name, certifications, any of those things. It had to do with behavior. And so academically, I studied that as a professor at the University of Arkansas for medical sciences. And I got the opportunity to implement that research into a publicly traded technology company called Axiom. And then that led me 20 years of doing mergers and acquisitions around the world, where I got to watch and observe the same kinds of things play out in countries on 5 continents.
And in the business side of things, right? Not the medical side. Yes,
That's right.
they're two different types of fields, but I think that basis of it kind of is the same thing.
For sure, for sure. And so I left Axiom on my 50th birthday, so almost 8 years ago. I walked out to create the Conductor. And so the Conductor, arconductor.org, that is a public-private partnership between a consulting firm up in Northwest Arkansas called Startup Junkie and University of Central Arkansas, basically to focus on what we call innovation, talent development, and economic empowerment. So we secure third-party sources of funding from the U.S. Small Business Administration, the University of Central Arkansas, the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, organizations that have a vested interest in economic development in rural areas. We use those funds to empower entrepreneurs, small business owners, and aspiring entrepreneurs to start and grow their companies, thus creating economic empowerment.
Which is great. I think people don't realize, especially for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small business owners, the impact they truly can have. Yes, we do have all these big corporations and big box stores and different places, but I think truly the economic impact comes from the small business owners and innovators.
Well, so the numbers bear out as well. So 99% of all employers in the United States are small businesses and startup companies. 50% of all employees, they generated more than twice the number of jobs over the last 20 years than large companies. They create 5 jobs on average in their first year and 67 cents of every dollar back into the local economy.
It's amazing. And I think entrepreneurs and small business owners need to hear that, because I don't think they always hear that they truly are making an impact. It could be a small impact right away, but as they grow, they make more of an impact. And they might not always feel that. I've been on my own now for almost 11 years, and I don't always feel that I make an impact, but I know that it's out there. You just have to be aware of that.
And so just to bring it all the way down, even if you didn't create an impact on people around you, which we know you did, you economically empowered yourself and your family.
And I think entrepreneurs and small business owners need to hear that. They need to know that all that network and blood, sweat, and tears does pan out. There are going to be highs and lows. I mean, I'm on a lot of networking and social media, and I see different comments about being small business owners. And yeah, there are times it sucks. There are times that you have to take a step back. And I think that's where the financial empowerment comes too. As a small business owner, the innovation, understanding how you make a change, the financial side of your business has to kind of go along with that too, because you have to understand that in order to help better yourself and better those around you.
I started teaching entrepreneurial finance at the University of Central Arkansas for graduate students, MBA students, and senior level undergraduate students. And I spend the first 2 weeks talking about personal financial management, because my experience with a lot of entrepreneurs is they run their business checkbook like they run their home checkbook, and in some instances, the same checkbook.
Which it shouldn't be.
That's exactly right.
It shouldn't be.
Absolutely. So I spend the first 2 weeks talking about personal financial management. I tell them, if you can't manage your own household checkbook, you can't manage a business's finances. And so learn at home and then apply that in the business world as well.
And I think that's an important point too, is what you're learning or how you're learning in your personal life on handling things does correlate to how you're going to run your business, whether it's the product you're selling or servicing or how you market. It all kind of goes into that. And so this Startup Junkies, this whole thing, is this really related to that entrepreneur that just kind of starts something, either sells it off or, I can't do this anymore, and kind of moves on? Like, what are the things you talk to or talk about for these Startup Junkies to kind of get them going?
So Startup Junkie, the organization was created by my business partner, another Jeff Amrine. We get referred to as the Jeffs in the entrepreneurial ecosystem.
I love that. The Jeffs.
And so he started it about 15 years ago. When we decided to create the Conductor, we created it as a partnership with UCA, Central Arkansas, and Startup Junkie. So I've been involved in it in 8 to 10 years. He's been doing it for 7 or 8 years longer. And so the purpose of the book was to basically capture what we had learned about building a sustainable venture ecosystem, unexpected places, because, people expect it in Silicon Valley, in the Palo Alto, California area. They expect it in Phoenix. They expect it in Nashville, Austin, Boston, New York, but they don't expect it in Fayetteville, Arkansas, or Conway, Arkansas, each of which has populations of 170,000 respectively. And so we talk a lot in the book about successful places that have created thriving, sustainable venture ecosystems. And we talk about the four pillars of talent, culture, community engagement, and access to capital. But to your original question, when we talk about the term startup junkies, it's both and. It's some people start a business and decide that's not for them, so they start another business. Ideally, however, we want it to be more of the latter, which would be those folks who start a company, they grow it, and maybe either sell it in a management buyout or sell it to investors or sell it to others, and then create another one. Because not all startup founders are also great business executives, management, they're good founders. And so we want to leverage those new starts to create new companies, but then when it makes sense, bring the right leadership team in to manage those companies longer term.
Right, which is an important point. Like I work for myself, I'm a solopreneur, I'm on my own. I have a little bit of a disadvantage because at this point I'm not bringing other people in, but I have to go outside of my little work bubble to network and chat with people. And even I talk to my husband, he's in IT, very business savvy, but I have those conversations because sometimes you have to take a step back from your business to see that bubble of what's really going on, to grow it. And you're right, bringing in leadership can help that founder or that innovator do that.
It requires a lot of maturity for a technical founder to say, once they've gotten the company to a certain level, say, you know what, I'm really the chief technology officer, I'm really the chief scientific officer, and I know that about me, and I know that's got some great value to add to the company, not as the CEO. So I'm going to go find someone to be the CEO to whom I can then report.
Or the CFO to help with the
Absolutely.
Financial side of things and that running of the business side. As you're going around and having these conversations, are there any stories or anything that sticks out that you've come across to kind of help you rethink some of the stuff you've already written down and kind of move forward? And what are the next stages that you bring to even your students to understand the entrepreneur and the business world?
Yeah, every day there's something new. So I meet with folks every day. The thing that I'm kind of focused on right at the moment is the fact that 10,000 people a day turn 65 and retire, and 8 to 10, maybe 12% of them actually own businesses, which means they're going to be passing those businesses down to either, if they started those companies, they're going to be passing them down to the second generation owner or the third generation owner, irrespective of whether that generation is actually a family member. It could just be someone outside. And some of our historical data suggests that 70% of those companies are going to fail.
Wow.
Post-transition. Because company was built around the cult of personality of the founder, because perhaps they didn't bring up the next generation of people to be able to run the business. Maybe they have not created the processes for the business. And it's the realities of managing in a changing economic landscape, changing competitive landscape, changing market landscape, put the business at risk. When you start thinking about the number of jobs that could result in being lost because those companies close, it could be staggering. And so I'm really focused now, not focused, but I spend quite a bit of time talking and writing about the things you need to do if you think you're going to transition your business to do ownership in the next 3, 5, 7 years.
Right.
What do you need
Succession planning.
Absolutely.
And I'm guilty of it. I haven't thought about that yet because I'm shifting and growing my business as a CPA, and I'm shifting away from individual tax work. I'll still do some, but more to the small business owners, helping entrepreneurs, small business owners, nonprofits even understand their landscape. But you're right, succession planning as an entrepreneur is huge. And not just, I think, from a who am I going to hand it off to or how I'm going to hand it off in transition, but also financially as well. I say this, I'm also a life insurance agent. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is business owners should have life insurance because of part of that for succession planning. This financial side of understanding it is what are all the pieces, not just the taxes and the profit and loss, but what are the other pieces?
Yeah, that's right. And the thing about it is succession planning is just planning for who's going to manage it. There's other aspects like, number one, how am I going to increase the value of my exit? How am I going to make my company more valuable? Number one, am I focused on the profitability of it? Am I making sure I'm running a good, sound, profitable company? Number two, is my product evolving with the market? Do I continue to have a value proposition that the market wants to pay for? What's the secret sauce of my business? And have I properly documented that secret sauce? Maybe it's a patent, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just trade secrets for how we do things. And could someone else come in here and do things as efficiently as it's being done now because I've developed a repeatable process? Predictability. Do I have a scalable system? And I predict if I turn this lever, I'm going to get this many customers. How do I secure my customers and my employees? My employees know that I'm 67, 68, 70, whatever the number is. They have to be asking questions about what's going to happen when I leave. Have I taken steps to give them security that this business is going to exist into perpetuity?
It's important. And you brought up about scalability. That's part of the process of reviewing your business. And sometimes you can scale your business and it doesn't work. And, sometimes you scale it and it does work. And then you're going along great. And then you got to shift it and things like that. Are there any insights or tips with regards to, let's say, that area of owning a business, running a business that would go across any kind of field that business owners should be aware of when they're trying to reassess kind of where's my business at, where's it going kind of a thing?
Yeah, for sure. What I would say is there's something called the founder's curse that says that the value of the business, the exit value of the business, is inversely proportional to the dependence that business has on the owner being or the founder being there every day. Now, granted, nobody will run your business like you will run your business, so you have to put the right safeguards in place. But if that business is required for you to be there for it to function optimally, then you need to recognize that your exit value is going to be significantly hampered as a result of that. Good, sound financial principles. While the actual measurements and the key performance indicators might be different, good, sound business principles. There are really only two ways to measure the growth of the business: top line and bottom line. Top line, am I growing revenue? Bottom line, am I growing profit and or generating more cash? Every other measure to measure the growth of a business is a vanity measure. Makes me feel good that I have now 100 employees or 200 employees or 500 employees, that I have 3 locations, 5 locations, 7 locations, that I have 100 customers, 500 customers, 1,000 customers. But those are all vanity measures. And I'm not saying they're not important, but if I'm using them as a measuring stick to determine how well my business is doing, it's the wrong measuring stick. I can have 1,000 customers go broke. I can have 500 employees and go broke. But if I've got growing cash, growing profits, and growing revenue, as long as I'm managing my expenses commensurately, I'm going to have a business that lasts.
And also having the tools and resources, being willing and able to hire an attorney or a CPA or having a consultant to help you. And yes, it is money out the door, but in the long run, that can help you. Hey, it's time for a money break. Welcome back from our money break. So I want to go back, like when you say your first 2 weeks of your business class, you talk to your students about personal finance and then you shifted into the business area. What are the things that you're seeing as you're teaching these students about the business world that you feel they're taking away from it so they can graduate and go out into the world and make our communities better?
So I am a very non-traditional, non-academic academic. So I thought I was going to be a finance major when I went to college. And I had a cousin who was 2 generations older than I, and he sold his pig feed mill in rural Arkansas and with the proceeds bought a bank.
Oh, interesting.
And he had an 11th grade education. And he told me to go up there to that college and get me one of them finance degrees, and he would teach me how to be a banker. And so I came to the university where I teach now as an incoming freshman, undeclared major, but thought I might want to be a finance major. And I took an intro to finance and economics, and I made the only D I've ever made in my life. And so I didn't continue to be a finance major. So after 20 plus years in business, 3 venture funds later, I now teach entrepreneurial finance to MBA students and undergraduates in the same college where the only grade I ever received was a D. And so I'm very practical and very non-traditional as an academic. So the very first day of class, and I present the syllabus to my students, there are 3 draft contracts for the grade of A, B, and C. Here's the draft contract for grade in A. Here's the draft. And I tell them, you spent $1,200 on this course, or your parents have spent $1,200. You need to get $10,000 worth of value out of this class in the next 5 to 7 years for it to have really been a good investment for you. So here's the draft for the grade of A, draft for the grade of B, draft for the grade of C. Take this contract, mark it up, send it back to me, because I want you to get $5,000 to $7,000 to $10,000 worth of value out of this $1,200 course. So make it your own. And so here are some ideas of things that you might change in the contract, but you can renegotiate it however you want. The second week of class, they sign the contract. I sign the contract because it's fully negotiated. That's the grade if they do what they contracted for. If they don't get the next lower grade, they fail the course. Now, they can renegotiate anytime up until the week before finals, but I have one open book test, and it's on about 250 finance terms that I just want to...
I'm glad it's open book, let me tell you.
I just want them to be familiar with them. They have to submit a team project, which is usually a business plan for a company. For the grade of A, they can't have any instances of an unnotified absence. And what I tell them is, look, never just not to my class. You have my cell phone, you have my email address. As long as you text me by 7:45 in the morning, my class starts at 8 a.m. As long as you text me and let me know you're not going to be there, I don't care why you're not there. It's just a call in.
Right.
Now, if you're absent more than X many times during the semester, then there's additional work you have to do, and that's part of the contract. And so effectively, they're walking out of there with very practical skills about how to be accountable for their work, how to do what they say when they say they're going to do it, how to be employable by showing up and being on time, how to negotiate, because there are at least a third of the students who have to renegotiate their contracts throughout the year. I also tell them, look, if this is an elective for you and you've negotiated for an A and you're in accounting 2 and it's a required course for you and you're struggling in accounting 2 and you know you need to put more focus on it so you can get a B or an A out of your major class, your required class, negotiate me down to a B or a C. I will think no differently of you if you make a C in my class properly negotiated, because real life says sometimes we have to prioritize and deprioritize things.
And that's very true too. I think you bring up a good point for businesses is you have to be able to prioritize, but it's not set in stone. You have to learn to shift with the times and understand, why do I need to take a step back or push forward or whatever. And it sounds like as your kids leave that hopefully they take the knowledge that you've shared with them, whether they go and they work for somebody else or they create their own business. It's financial literacy, right?
It is. And workplace literacy. Absolutely.
Yes. And I know we're lacking a lot of that with our younger generation. I have 2 sons. One just graduated college and one is going into his second year, and having those conversations because they need to understand that.
With my daughters, we lived in the UK in 2003, 2004. They were 9 and 11. And I knew that we were going to be traveling a lot because we were going to make the opportunity. So we divided all the household chores into $1 increments, or £1 at that time.
Right.
So, empty the dishwasher, it's £1. Help your mom set the table for dinner, it's £1. Clean your bathroom, it's £3. But then there were penalties. Penalties were, if you didn't do if I have to wake you up in the mornings, you have an alarm. If I have to wake you up, it's £3. If I have to intervene a dispute between you and your sister, it's a £3 babysitting charge. That. And so then we fast forward when my older daughter turned 15, I told her that she wasn't going to get a new car and she wasn't going to get a car on her 16th birthday, but it could cost no more than $10,000. It could have no more than 85,000 miles on it, and it could be no more than 8 years old. So go find what you want. When you find it, I'll go drive it.
Make sure it's safe. Yeah.
Bought her a car, went straight down to the courthouse and got her a hardship license, and then to the bank to get a checking account. And I said, you now own all of the household buying of groceries and toiletries and household supplies. Here's how much we spend a month. I'm going to divide that in 2. I'm going to put half of it in your account on one Friday and half of your account on the other Friday. So that plus what you save is your spending money. And here are the things that we will consume generic. Here are the things that we will not consume generic. Everything else is up to you. Go do good. And it was amazing to watch her mindset change when her friends would come over and she would say, hey, you just got that soda out of the fridge. You need to drink all of that. You're spending my money now. So don't drink half and throw it away.
Right. But, shifting in a little bit in that regards is having those conversations, because it's not just when you go to college or if you go right out into the workforce and you're understanding how, you want to run a business and all that. We have to talk to our young adults about money. We have to explain to them beyond just, you open up a checking account. There have to be ways. There's a system called Save, Spend, Give that you can work with younger kids. And what I did is I set up a checking and savings account. And when my kids would work, put some of that away in savings. And then let's take some of it aside, put it in savings, but designate it to give to charity or do good with that. And what's in your checking account, you have to budget, you have to plan. And if you run out of it, that's the issue. You have to learn how to manage that. And I think those skills correlate to if you decide to go out on your own and run a business, those things correlate to that because you still have to budget for your business. And, it is hard. It's hard to price your product. And then there are studies and there's marketing and there's ways to do it. And you're not always going to get it right. When I started out doing individual tax work, just because I wanted to get the clients, I undervalued my tax fees. And I still have clients who started with me who their rates are a lot lower than my newer clients, but I'm okay with that because I've had them for 10, 11, 12 years. Their rates got raised, but now my rate is high. And I'll have people come to me and go, why do you charge that? I'm a certified public accountant. I've been in accounting field for almost 30 years. I do continuing education, and I'm also preparing your returns. I'm not just putting numbers into a system and spitting out. I'm analyzing, I'm doing work, I'm filing for you.
When people ask me, what's your hourly rate? I tell them, my time is not worth one penny to you. What's worth what I do to you is the result that you get as a result of working with me.
Absolutely.
So if I don't generate results, you might buy 1 hour of my time. And if I don't generate results for you, then you're not going to buy hour number 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever. So I'm not selling my time. I'm selling my expertise.
And not to apologize. I say this to all my clients who are small business owners, entrepreneurs, even nonprofit clients I work with. You do not apologize for why you charge what you charge or what you're doing or your processes, because that is something that you're working on. Now, that doesn't mean you can't take insights or criticisms and shift things, but you shouldn't apologize for it because it is your business.
I tell entrepreneurs all the time, I have what I call the 5,500 rule. I have people who come to me and they say one of two things. I want to generate $100,000 a year in household income from my business. Or they say, I want my business to generate $1 million a year. Those are general numbers I get. And I say, if you were to go down the street here to the large employer and take a salaried job, they're going to put 2,080 hours in the payroll system because that's a full-time salaried position. So we're going to take it to 2,000 because the math works. For that $100,000 of household income, your time is worth $50 an hour to your family. If you want your business to generate $1 million a year, your time is worth $500 an hour to your business. If you're the CEO of that company, how much time are you spending on $12 an hour tasks? And are you operating at the top of your license? I had a young lady come to me who had started her own company and was doing some consulting. And I asked her, what was her income goal? And she says, I really want to earn $100,000 a year. And I said, okay, so what is your billable rate? And she said, my billable rate right now is $30 an hour. I said, so you want to work time and a half, 60, 70 hours a week, $100,000. She said, no, I want to make $100,000, but I want to do it in a normal work week. And I said, mathematically impossible. To help her to see the twinkle in her eye when she went from, how could I have made that error of charging $30 an hour and wanting something completely different than that? Because those ends, you can't pull them together.
And do you find with those conversations and talking to your college students and as you consult, the whole idea of the digital world, the social media, the AI is becoming a big thing. Like, are you starting to see or adjust yourself on what you talk to your small business or entrepreneurs or, college kids about? Because we are heading more into the digital and AI future, but that doesn't mean, and maybe I'm a little naive, I believe that AI is not necessarily going to take everything over. It can't.
What's going to take everything over is the people who know how to leverage and use AI. They will replace the people who don't keep up with digital technologies. The digital technologies won't replace people. It'll be people who know how to leverage the digital technologies that replace them. When I first started this job 8 years ago, I came from a 20-year career as a corporate executive with a Microsoft Office system, a laptop, an executive assistant who never let me touch my calendar. Then all of a sudden, I'm on a Mac, on Gmail, and I'm scheduling my own meetings. And I started looking at the amount of time that it took me to schedule a meeting. And it was about 7 to 10 minutes of either emails back and forth or text messages back and forth. And so I was scheduling 30 to 50 meetings a month. So you figure 10 minutes a meeting, 30 to 50 meetings a month. I mean, that eats up a ton of time.
Yeah.
So I found this cool technology called Calendly that cost me $108 a year. And with that, bought several days a year back of my time for that $108. And so figuring out how to integrate technologies into our day-to-day lives, I carry an iPad. I have a laptop, but I carry an iPad and I've got it set up where it's all synced and it goes everywhere with me. So if I'm hung up at the doctor's office waiting on an appointment, I'm working. If I'm on the boat at the lake and it's a Thursday afternoon and I want to check my email, I can check my email and work can continue. So leveraging all of that downtime by being connected. Now, I also had to learn how to turn off all the notifications.
I was just going to say not only that, but the boundaries, the self-care. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, we still have to have self-care and boundaries.
Sure.
And I've had to learn that too.
The only notifications I have at all is my text message and my phone ringer. I have no Facebook notifications, no email notifications. They get checked when I choose to go check them.
Yeah, I was just at Future Business Leaders of America. FBLA has chapters all over. I was part of it when I was in high school, and myself and 2 other CPAs just went to their Pennsylvania state competition to talk to them because the Pennsylvania Institute of CPAs, CPAs in general, the pipeline is drying up a little bit. People are like, do I want to spend the time and money to become a CPA, this and that? And we're trying to reach out to middle school and high school students to talk about just the accounting field in general. Talking about having that financial background can help you no matter what you do, whether you become a CPA, an accountant, whatever you do. But talking to them, and that question came up about AI and how you're a CPA and aren't you afraid of AI taking things away? And my answer was, not really. I said the AI can do the small tasks, the tasks that, like you said, take time, that you don't need to be doing, and you can shift what you're doing. And that mindset for business owners of leveraging that and being okay with that and understanding that it's not necessarily going to take jobs away, but how do you shift that?
Yeah, well, it enables us in the medical field. We talk about operating at the top of your license. AI and digital technologies can enable us to operate at the top of our license so that we can do the higher value things for our clients and ourselves and our business and leverage technology and perhaps even employees, quite frankly, to handle the lower, hopefully technology-enabled employees to be able to do more for $12 or $15 or $20 an hour than could do just by themselves without the technology.
So do you also find, as you're talking and consulting, we're talking to your students with regards to social media, the things that people on social media talk about when it comes to businesses or finances, and not everything is correct, right? You can't always just listen to that TikTok and they tell you to do X, Y, Z, and it might not be legal. It might not help you with the IRS. It might not help you get your business off the ground. Like, are you finding that you're coming across those stories as well? And how do you combat that and have that conversation?
Or it might be BS. And I tell people, I say, have you ever heard of something called catfishing, where someone else via social media or what have you, and they get someone, they swindle them for money? What's to suggest that someone could take the version of that and create a TikTok video and tell you how they're making thousands and thousands of dollars an hour doing something? Margaret Thatcher once said, being powerful is like being a lady. If you have to tell someone you are, you aren't. And so if part of my shtick is to get online and tell people how wealthy I am and how much money I'm making and what have you, then there's something wrong with the message, the fundamental message, that I'm having to sensationalize it in order to get people to buy it versus telling the truth, just being truthful with folks. And I don't want people to come to me and buy my services or seek my services because of a sensationalized message. I want them to buy authenticity.
So how do you weave that into when you're talking to other entrepreneurs to get them to understand that, yeah, it's great to share your accolades and who you are and how you do things, but there's a way to do it so that it helps them grow. And I'm sure you're finding that more now than 20, 30 years ago.
I tell people that, number one, they are deserving of every piece of recognition that they get, but they don't have to create it for themselves. That if they can get other people to recognize them, that's far better. A third-party validation is far better. But by the same token, if they have products and services that they feel are truly good for the public, then they have a moral and ethical obligation to share that with the public. I had that happen a lot during COVID. I was working with a farm to table, kind of an organic farm up in rural Faulkner County. They came to me during COVID and they said, we've got all these chickens and all this beef and all this poultry, but when I get online and start promoting what we do, she said, I kind of feel like an ambulance chaser, and I said, have you walked into a grocery store lately? This was like in mid to late 2020. Have you looked at the shelves in a grocery store? They're empty. people needed your products and services before COVID. They certainly need them now. And you have a moral and ethical obligation to tell people about them. And that, really kind of challenged her mindset in that regard. And she said, no, you're right. I can do that in a tasteful, appropriate way.
Yeah.
And not feel bad about it.
Right. And grow your business and be able to say to the community, look, we were still able to provide for you during a time where everything's topsy-turvy. And I think it is important that business owners understand that. Economy's going great. You still need to promote yourself. Economy's not going great. You still need to promote yourself if you're able to provide something that maybe people can't get.
Well, and during that time, their catering business went to zero. Their wholesale business to restaurants went down by 80%.
Wow.
Their walk-in store traffic went down by 80%. And their e-commerce online shipping direct to consumer went up by 1,200%.
Amazing. Amazing. So as you have done workshops all across the world, are there things that you find as an entrepreneur, let's say from the United States compared to, South America or Europe, that it's so unique to us here in the United States, or that you find there are definitely things that can be bridged across? I'm just curious, like kind of the things you've seen in that regard.
Yeah, I think the vast majority can be bridged. I mean, take a look at the number of immigrants who have come to the United States and been wildly successful with their businesses because they got the opportunity.
Yes.
Or they seized the opportunity, maybe is what I should.
Right.
So, business is business fundamentally. Now, there are some cultural differences. So, for instance, in Saudi Arabia and Brazil, 15 minutes late is early.
Oh, interesting.
And so, we would get ready. I'd say we have a meeting at 9:00 and it would be 5 minutes till 9 and we're just now leaving and I'm about to have a stroke. And we get there at 9:15 and it's like, oh, how's everybody doing? Oh, we're doing great. And then at 9:20 or 9:30, the principals would show up. So there are cultural differences in terms of what on time is, what late is. But in terms of the business fundamentals, I have yet to find one that doesn't translate and doesn't transfer across geographies.
And what is it that you view as important business fundamentals?
That nothing happens till you sell something. You have to have clients. You have to have the ability to sell your product and service. It has to add value. You have to have a service element that you can retain customers. You have to be competitive from a price perspective. You have to create an environment where people want to come to work because they truly can choose to go work in other places. The worst thing is to have not employees that quit and leave, but have employees that quit and stay, or disengaged employees. Right?
I was going to say, what is it? Quiet quitting, I think they call it now.
Quit and stay? Yeah.
Quit and stay.
Yeah. And then the fundamentals of running the financial aspects of your business.
Which is just as important as all the other things that, you mentioned. The conversation has been great so far. Is there anything else, anything that you want to get across for small business owners that you've seen that you wish, I wish I had known that before? Now I know it, that you think is important for business owners and even just anybody to know?
Yeah. I think what I said a few moments ago is that nothing happens until you sell something. So the more time that a business owner can spend perfecting the acquisition of customers and the retention of customers. And so that actually travels all the way through the business. So the acquisition of customers is a front office function. And if you don't have a predictable, proven way to go to the market with your products and services and sell the market on those product services, then you're not going to have a sustainable business. But by the same token, helping everyone understand inside the business that retaining that customer is vitally important as well, then you can have the best acquisition methodology in the world. But if you're losing them out the back door, you have a leaky bucket.
Right.
So the more time that you can spend as an entrepreneur or small business owner perfecting both your customer acquisition and your customer retention, the greater the dividends that it will pay over time.
Yeah, and I agree. I've been doing a little bit of shifting in my own business structure, and especially, with my individual clients. And part of my issue has been, I want my clients, especially my individual tax clients, to understand that there's stuff going on throughout the year that they can do from a planning aspect. And I don't want my services to be free for that. I mean, I'm going to admit it. And so I did try to shift kind of how I did my fee service, and 90% of them rebutted. Like, they just were like, we're not doing monthly subscription. We're not, or, monthly, whatever. I don't need you throughout the year. but without realizing that really they do, because there's shifts in tax law changes. They've either owed more money or they're getting less money back or they owe for the first time. And I understand that people don't want to deal with taxes during the year. Small business owners, entrepreneurs have to a degree, but I conceded a little bit and I said, okay, I'll keep you on. I've got my rates, whatever. But if you want me beyond tax season, it's an hourly rate. And you're going to have to pay that because, in the past, I have been known to just work on things with them out of tax season when the returns have already been filed and not charge them because I didn't see value in myself as an entrepreneur to say, I have to charge for that. And in some level, I'm shifting more to small business owners because I'm finding the value that they're taking out of it, of having someone in the professional field help.
What I found, and so I used to consult on a project basis. And so what I started doing is I have for our strategic growth system, which it's an annual price, and that price is blank. And oh, by the way, if you prefer, then I can bill that monthly to you on an automatic draft, and spread it across the entirety of the year because my engagement is 12 months. Here's the amount for 12 months. You can pay it up front or you can have it spread out however you want to do it. And if they say, oh, that's just too much, I say, okay, then what can you afford? They say, I could pay this on an annual basis. Okay, then my scope comes from here down to here. And I'm still willing to bill it over a 12-month period if you want. And so that has helped me. Most of my clients, they will renew for 2 or 3 years following. And so it's worked out well for me in that regard.
Yeah. And I'm finding that, my philosophy, again, I'm shifting some stuff for small business, is really to be able to engage, strategize, educate, and empower small business owners. And I think that having that philosophy and having goals and explaining that as a business owner, whether it's a product you make, a widget or something you sell or services, you kind of have to have a philosophy around what you're doing to be able to build on that.
For sure. No, I completely agree with that.
So is there anything else, even insights or tips for any young adults, women, just business owners that you want to share as we're winding down our time here on the podcast?
Yeah, about 55% of the companies we work with are women-owned businesses and about 35% are racial minorities. And so, we open our doors to anyone who has a desire, everything from a desire to be a business owner to an existing business owner or someone with just an idea. And I would say that you don't have to walk away from full-time employment to start being an entrepreneur. I didn't. I started building a landing pad or a safe landing for me probably 8 years before I left my corporate job. I started more on the acquisition side of acquiring some businesses and being a minority investor in them. I've seen multiple people, and we've helped a number of people take their side hustle to their full-time gig. And you don't have to risk everything by walking away from a good salaried position in order to start. You may have to get some approvals from your employer. And if that's do that, like for instance, I worked as a state university official and I signed a conflict of commitment policy there that said, it didn't say you can't go out, but if you're going to go do anything on the side, you just need to get approval from your boss or your employer or whatever. So seek whatever approvals you need, but you can start that side hustle now. And it may just be a side hustle that provides a great income supplement for years to come. But I would start by saying that you don't have to walk away from everything. And then number 2, the more you have your personal financial house in order, the greater the likelihood you're going to be successful in business because you don't have a disorganized financial house.
Yeah, very true. I don't disagree at all. And I love the fact that you're working with a lot of women-owned businesses. I think it's great. And I appreciate you taking the time and coming on and, chatting with me. And I learned some great stuff and I'm excited to grab your books and read them. And like I said, I'll add all that to the podcast bio.
I appreciate you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And I appreciate the work that you're doing as well to educate entrepreneurs and individuals about finance and accounting and managing their business and what have you. So thank you for that.
You are welcome. Thank you. Hey, it's your financial maven, and I want to hear from you. Feel free to leave me your insights and money stories or questions that you may have about money. You can visit www.yourfinancialmavenpodcast.com and click on the I Want to Hear From You tab. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about money. The purpose of this podcast is to provide general information on the subjects discussed. It is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. You should consult your CPA, accountant, or tax professional for all of your specific financial needs or situations. Your Financial Maven is hosted and produced by Samantha M. Besnoff, CPA, and Your Financial Maven, LLC. Editing is done by Chris Zarnock of KM Zen Creative. Music is written, composed, and performed by Daniel Shore.